The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the cold darkness of space, orbiting a dying star that the galaxy had declared neutral ground. Inside, thousands of delegates from hundreds of species sat in their assigned seats, watching the small human figure standing alone at the central podium. Ambassador Lee Min-ho had stood in this exact spot 46 times before. He knew every crack in the polished floor. He knew the way the light fell from the massive crystal ceiling. He knew the smell of recycled air mixed with the strange perfumes of alien bodies. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that no one in this room cared about what he was going to say. But he said it anyway. 3 years ago, Krix raiders attacked our colony on Kepler 2-2b, Min-ho said, his voice steady and calm. 4,000 human beings died. Men, women, and children. We brought evidence to this council. We showed you recordings of the attack. We identified the ships. We named the commanders responsible. We ARC. He paused and looked around the vast chamber. Most delegates were not even pretending to listen. Some were talking among themselves. Others were checking their personal devices. High Counselor Vorn, the ancient being who led this assembly, was having a quiet conversation with his aide. You did nothing, Min-ho continued. You called it a border dispute. You suggested that perhaps the colonists had provoked the attack. You voted to delay investigation for 6 months, then 12 months, then indefinitely. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably, but most remained indifferent. Since then, we have brought 46 formal complaints to this council. Trade violations, territorial encroachments, attacks on our merchant vessels, theft of our technology, discrimination against human workers in galactic ports. Each time, we followed your procedures. Each time, we trusted in your justice. Min-ho lifted a data tablet and held it up for all to see. This is a record of every complaint. 46 requests for basic fairness. 46 denials. High Counselor Vorn finally raised one of his 4 hands, signaling Min-ho to stop. The old alien's skin was gray and wrinkled like ancient leather, and his eyes held the bored look of someone who had seen too many centuries pass. Ambassador Lee, Vorn said slowly, the Council appreciates humanity's enthusiasm for justice. But you must understand that your species is still very young. You have been part of galactic civilization for barely a century. There are complexities here that you cannot yet understand. A low murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Krix are a warrior culture, Vorn continued. They have been part of the Galactic Compact for 3,000 years. These small conflicts are simply how they express themselves. In time, you will learn to accept this. Min-ho felt his jaw tighten, but his face remained calm. With respect, High Counselor, we are not asking you to change Krix culture. We are asking for the justice that the Galactic Compact promises to all member species. Vorn waved his hand dismissively. The Council will vote on whether to investigate your claims. All those in favor of opening an investigation into human grievances? Are. 2 hands rose in the vast chamber. Delegate Kayla of the Thoral species was one of them. Her smooth blue face showed clear sympathy for the human ambassador. The other was Scholar Riva, an ancient historian whose species had been keeping records since before most civilizations existed. All those opposed? 11 hands rose. Motion denied, Vorn said with obvious satisfaction. The Council finds no merit in the human complaints. This session is... Wait. The single word from Min-ho cut through the chamber like a blade. Something in his tone made even Vorn pause. Min-ho reached into his coat and pulled out a small communication device. A message was flashing on its screen. He read it slowly, and for just a moment, the delegates saw something change in his eyes. The tiredness that had weighed on him for years seemed to lift. In its place was something harder. Something final. I have just received authorization from President Kim Yuna of the United Earth Federation, Min-ho said. I am instructed to deliver protocol silence. No one in the chamber knew what those words meant, but the way Min-ho said them made several delegates lean forward with sudden interest. The ambassador reached up and removed the silver pin from his collar, the symbol of his diplomatic status. He placed it carefully on the podium. Then he removed the Earth Federation badge from his chest and placed it beside the pin. The United Earth Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Compact, Minho announced. His voice filled the chamber, strong and clear. All treaties between humanity and Council species are now void. All trade agreements are cancelled. All borders are closed. Laughter erupted from several parts of the chamber. Even Vorn allowed himself a small smile. "Ambassador," Vorn said with amusement, "do you understand what you are saying? Humanity cannot survive outside the Compact. Your economy depends on galactic trade. Your technology relies on our shared resources. You are making empty threats." Minho ignored him completely. He continued speaking as if Vorn had not said a word. "Do not contact us. Do not approach our space. Do not send your ships, your diplomats, or your merchants. From this moment forward, the United Earth Federation will ensure its own security, its own prosperity, and its own justice." He looked directly at Vorn, and there was no fear in his eyes. Only cold certainty. "You had 100 years to treat humanity as equals. You chose mockery instead. You chose dismissal. You chose to let our people die without consequence." Minho stepped back from the podium. "We are done asking for fairness. We are done begging for respect. From this day forward, we will take what is ours." He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. "You cannot do this," Vorn shouted, his composure finally breaking. "You are a minor species. You need us." Minho did not stop. He did not turn around. He simply walked through the massive doors and disappeared into the corridor beyond. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then the laughter began again. Delegates shook their heads at the foolishness of humans. Vorn settled back in his seat, with a satisfied expression. The young species had finally learned their place. Only two beings in that chamber did not laugh. Delegate Keela sat frozen in her seat, her blue skin pale with fear. She understood something that the others did not. She had studied humans. She had read their history. She knew what they were capable of when pushed too far. And Scholar Riva, the ancient historian, whispered words that no one else could hear. "The fools. They have made a terrible mistake." The lights of the Grand Assembly Hall continued to shine. The delegates returned to their conversations. The galaxy continued to spin, and somewhere in the depths of space, humanity began to prepare. The galaxy expected humans to come back within a week. When a week passed, they expected a month. When a month passed, the jokes began to fade. When 3 months passed, the jokes stopped completely. On the border of human space, automated beacons floated in perfect formation. They broadcast a simple message in 4,000 languages, repeating endlessly into the void. "You are approaching United Earth Federation territory. Unauthorized entry will be considered an act of war. Turn back now." No human ships crossed that line. No human voices answered calls. Every embassy on every alien world stood empty, cleaned out in 72 hours with perfect efficiency. Human merchants had returned home with their goods. Human workers had packed their belongings and vanished. The silence was absolute. High Counselor Vorn called an emergency session of the Council to celebrate. He stood at the same podium where Ambassador Minho had delivered his declaration. And he smiled, with satisfaction. "The human tantrum has ended as we predicted," Vorn announced. "They have retreated to their small corner of the galaxy. Trade routes are being redistributed to proper species. The territories they claimed are now open for colonization. The galaxy is better without their constant complaints." Warlord Melos of the Krix Empire laughed loudly from his seat. He was a massive creature, covered in scales and scars from 100 battles. "I told you they were weak. One small raid and they run away. Perhaps we should follow them and finish the job." The chamber filled with approving murmurs. But Delegate Keela did not laugh. She sat quietly in her seat, reading reports that had been arriving from across the galaxy. Reports that told a very different story. The first problems appeared on medical stations. For 50 years, Human scientists had been producing special medical nanobots, tiny machines that could heal diseases from inside a patient's body. These nanobots were the only known cure for Velox plague, a terrible sickness that killed millions every year. Now, the supply was gone. No new nanobots were coming. Hospitals sent desperate messages to human space, offering any price. The messages went unanswered. Then the jump gates began to fail. These massive structures allowed ships to travel across the galaxy in seconds instead of years. They were ancient technology, built long before most current species existed, and no one remembered how to fix them except human engineers. Humanity had spent decades studying the gates, learning their secrets, and keeping them running. Now, 3 major gates had collapsed entirely. Travel times between sectors increased from hours to months. The agricultural world of Thoral Prime sent emergency broadcasts. The planet had been using human farming techniques to grow enough food for its population. Without human advisors, the crops were failing. Famine was coming. Entertainment networks went dark. Cultural festivals were canceled. Universities lost half their researchers. Factories stopped production because human-designed parts were no longer available. Delegate Keela requested a private meeting with the Council's inner circle. She stood before Vorn, Melos, and the other senior members with a data tablet in her hands. "You need to understand what has happened," she said quietly. "Humans did not join galactic civilization because they needed us. They joined to study us." Melos snorted. "Study us? They are children. What could they possibly learn?" Keela activated her tablet, projecting information into the air above it. In 100 years, humans integrated themselves into every critical system in the galaxy. Medical technology, transportation infrastructure, food production, communications, entertainment. They made themselves essential while we laughed at them for being helpful. She looked at each council member in turn. They know our weaknesses. They know our dependencies. They know our secrets. And now they have taken all that knowledge back to their space, and they have closed the door. Vorn shifted uncomfortably. "You are exaggerating. No species could plan so far ahead. Human history says otherwise," Keela replied. "Their planet has records of wars that lasted generations, conflicts where the final victory was planned by great-grandparents who never lived to see it. Patience is not a weakness for them. It is a weapon." Warlord Melos stood up, his massive form casting a shadow across the room. "Enough of this fear. I will show you that humans are nothing special. I will send a warship to their border. We will see how brave they are when faced with Crick steel." No one argued with him. Part of them wanted to believe he was right. 3 days later, the Crick's battleship Dark Fury approached the human border. It was a massive vessel, armed with weapons that could destroy cities. 500 warriors stood ready for combat. Its commander was a veteran of dozens of campaigns. The ship crossed the beacon line. For exactly 17 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Dark Fury vanished from every sensor in the galaxy. 17 seconds after that, it reappeared. But it was no longer a ship. It was a cloud of debris, scattered across exactly 1 cubic kilometer of space. Every piece was the same size. Every piece was perfectly cut. The destruction was so precise, so controlled, that scientists would later calculate the attack had lasted less than 1,000th of a second. A message broadcast on all frequencies. It was not spoken by a human voice. It was simply text, appearing on every screen across the galaxy. Warning acknowledged. 1. In his palace on the Crick's homeworld, Warlord Melos stared at the message with wide eyes. His hands were shaking. 500 of his best warriors had died before they could even raise their weapons. The most powerful battleship in his fleet had been cut into pieces like paper. And the humans had only said one word. 1. It was a count, a promise, a warning that this was only the beginning. On Thoral Prime, Delegate Kayla watched the same message appear on her screen. She thought about her people, already beginning to starve. She thought about the diseases spreading because there were no more medical nanobots. She thought about the jump gates falling apart, trapping entire populations on isolated worlds. And she thought about what the humans had said in their declaration. We will ensure our own justice. For the first time in her long political career, Keela understood real fear. Not fear of the Cricks and their weapons. Not fear of the Council and their games. Fear of a species that had been laughed at for a century, that had taken every insult with a patient smile, and that had been waiting all that time for this moment. She opened a secret communication channel. It was risky. It might be detected. But she had to try. Ambassador Lee Minho, she typed carefully. I know you are receiving this. Please. There are innocent people suffering. Is there any way to talk? Hours passed. She did not expect an answer, but late that night, her screen flickered. A single line of text appeared. Not yet, but we remember who voted in our favor. When the time comes, you will have the chance to be on the right side of history. Keela read the message 3 times. Then she deleted it and began to plan. The galaxy had made its choice. Now it would live with the consequences. 6 months after humanity closed its borders, the galaxy was falling apart. The Velox plague had spread to 17 worlds. Without human medical nanobots, doctors could only watch their patients die slowly. Mass graves appeared on planets that had never known such suffering. Parents buried their children. Cities fell silent. The Jumpgate network continued to collapse. What had been a journey of hours now took months. Trade ships rotted in ports, unable to reach their destinations. Economies that depended on fast travel crashed completely. Entire species found themselves trapped in their home systems, watching their savings disappear. On Thoral Prime, the famine that Delegate Kayla had feared became reality. Food riots broke out in major cities. The government declared emergency rationing, but it was not enough. People began to die not from disease, but from simple hunger on a planet that had once been considered a paradise. And across the galaxy, a single question echoed in every meeting room and council chamber. How did we not see this coming? Inside human space, things were very different. Admiral Park Do-hoon stood on the bridge of the United Earth Federation's flagship, the Eternal Dawn. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. Around him, dozens of officers monitored screens showing the border of human space. 12 unauthorized approaches in the last 24 hours, his aide reported. All turned back by automated defenses. Do-hoon nodded. What were they? 3 merchant vessels claiming to carry medical supplies. 2 diplomatic shuttles from minor species. 7 military scouts trying to map our defenses. 1. And the assassination team? The aide pulled up a new screen. Disguised as refugees. Their ship was disabled and boarded. All 12 operatives have been detained for questioning. We have already identified their employers. Do-hoon allowed himself a small smile. The council never changes. They think a knife in the dark will solve their problems. On Earth, President Kim Yuna addressed the United Parliament. She was a woman in her 50s, with short black hair and the tired eyes of someone who had carried heavy burdens for too long. But today, there was strength in her voice that had not been there for years. Our borders are secure, she announced. Our people are safe. Our economy is stronger than it has ever been. For a century, we shared our gifts with the galaxy and received nothing but contempt in return. That time is over. The Parliament erupted in applause. In a secure facility deep beneath Earth's surface, Dr. Cho Sunwoo led President Yuna through corridors that officially did not exist. He was a thin man with thick glasses and nervous hands, the kind of scientist who forgot to eat when he was working on something interesting. During our century of integration, Dr. Cho explained, we did not just learn from other species. We collected data. We studied their technologies. And we improved upon them. He stopped at a massive door and pressed his hand against a scanner. The door slid open to reveal a vast chamber filled with things that should not exist. Quantum communication, Doctor, Cho said, pointing to a small device. Instant messages across any distance. No delay. No interception possible. The galaxy still uses light-speed transmissions. We abandoned that technology 20 years ago. He moved to another display. Artificial gravity manipulation. We can create gravity fields anywhere. Our ships no longer need to rotate or use acceleration for gravity. We can also reverse the effect, making objects weightless or crushing them under 1,000 times normal gravity. President Yuna studied the displays with growing amazement. What else? Dr. Cho smiled nervously. Terraforming that takes decades instead of millennia. Medical technology that makes their nanobots look like ancient history. Energy systems that could power entire planets. He paused at the final display. It was empty except for a small, silver sphere. And this, he said quietly. President Yuna looked at the sphere. What is it? We call it the quiet light. It is a weapon that can extinguish stars. The president was silent for a long moment. Have we tested it? On a dead star in empty space, it worked perfectly. Dr. Cho's voice was soft. We have never told anyone. We hoped we would never need to use it. But if the galaxy forces our hand, President Yuna touched the glass case gently. Let us hope it never comes to that. At the same moment, far across the galaxy, High Counselor Vorn was losing control. The council chamber was in chaos. Delegates screamed at each other. Some demanded surrender to humanity, others demanded war. The elegant order of galactic politics had collapsed into panic and blame. We must attack before they grow stronger. Warlord Melos roared. His forces had been humiliated by the destruction of the Dark Fury, and his political position was crumbling. He needed a victory, any victory, to restore his reputation. Attack with what? Shouted a delegate from a minor species. They destroyed your best ship in less than a second. What chance do the rest of us have? Vorn raised his 4 hands, trying to restore order. Silence. We will vote on forming a military coalition. Combined, our forces number in the thousands. Humans cannot stand against the entire galaxy. Scholar Riva, the ancient historian, rose from her seat. Her voice was soft, but something about it made everyone stop and listen. Before you vote, she said, I must show you something. She activated a holographic display. Numbers and images filled the air. Every species in this room achieved faster than light travel over thousands of years, Riva explained. Humans did it in less than 200. Every species expanded slowly and carefully. Humans colonized 47 star systems in a single century. Their population grows faster than any species ever recorded. Their technology advances at a rate we cannot measure. She looked at the council with ancient, knowing eyes. You are not dealing with a young species that got lucky. You are dealing with something the galaxy has never encountered before. And you want to make them your enemy? 1. Melos slammed his fist on his desk. Enough of this cowardice. They are one species against hundreds. Vote now. The vote was called. 9 in favor of war, 4 against. Scholar Riva sat down slowly. She had lived for thousands of years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species destroy themselves with their own arrogance, and she knew, with terrible certainty, that she was about to watch it happen again. In human space, sensors detected the mobilization of alien fleets. The data was transmitted instantly. Quantum communication made light-speed delays irrelevant to every human command center. Admiral Park Do-hun received the news on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. His officers waited for his reaction with nervous anticipation, but the admiral did not look worried. He did not look angry. He smiled. Finally, he said softly, they are bringing the fight to us. He turned to his communications officer. Signal all fleet commanders. Begin Protocol Thunder. The galaxy wants a war. His smile grew wider. We will give them one they will never forget. The coalition fleet gathered at the edge of human space like a storm cloud waiting to break. 2,000 warships from 7 different species, carrying millions of soldiers and enough weapons to burn entire worlds. It was the largest military force assembled in 300 years. Warlord Melos stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Iron Thunder, watching the human border through massive windows. He had demanded command of the entire coalition, and no one had argued. His desire for revenge burned brighter than anyone else's. Today, we show the galaxy what happens to species that forget their place, he announced to his fleet. His voice was broadcast to every ship. The humans have hidden behind their beacons long enough. We will tear down their defenses, occupy their worlds, and teach them the meaning of respect." Cheers echoed across 2,000 ships. At the same time, High Counselor Vorn watched from his private chamber on the council station, far from any danger. He had a clear view of the battle through secure channels. He expected to watch a quick, overwhelming victory. On the human side of the border, things looked very different. Captain Zhang Hana stood on the bridge of the Starfall, leading a defense fleet of just 200 ships. She was young for her rank, with sharp eyes and a calm voice that never wavered even in crisis. Behind her, crews prepared for combat with quiet efficiency. 2,000 against 200, her first officer said. "Those are not good numbers." Hana smiled slightly. "Numbers only matter when both sides are equal." "We are not equal." She opened a communication channel to all human ships. "This is Captain Zhang. The enemy is approaching our border. They believe they are coming to conquer us. They are wrong." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For 100 years, we smiled while they insulted us. We helped while they mocked us. We studied while they ignored us. They think they know who we are. Today, we show them how wrong they have been." The human fleet moved into position. 200 ships facing 2,000. From any logical perspective, it should have been a massacre. Melos gave the order to attack. The coalition fleet surged forward, crossing the beacon line with weapons charging. Thousands of missiles launched. Energy beams cut through the darkness of space, and then reality itself seemed to break. Human ships moved in ways that defied physics. They were in one place, then instantly somewhere else. They did not accelerate or turn, they simply appeared wherever they wanted to be. Coalition targeting systems went insane trying to track them. The first wave of missiles exploded harmlessly, hitting nothing but empty space where human ships had been a moment before. Then the humans fired back. Their weapons did not shoot beams or missiles. They shot something else. Something that coalition scientists would later call compressed reality. It passed through shields, as if they did not exist. It passed through armor as if it were water. Ships did not explode. They simply stopped existing. In the first hour, 400 coalition ships were destroyed. Humans lost 3. Panic spread through the coalition fleet. Ships that had never known defeat found themselves powerless. Warriors, who had trained their entire lives, discovered that their skills meant nothing. The carefully planned attack dissolved into chaos. Captain Hana watched the battle unfold from her bridge. Her face showed no satisfaction, no excitement, only focus. "Target the flagship," she ordered. "Disable. Do not destroy. I want Melos alive." The starfall flickered and vanished. It reappeared directly behind the Iron Thunder, so close that the two ships were almost touching. Before Melos could even react, Hana's weapons fired. They did not aim for the bridge or the engines. They targeted specific systems, communications, weapons, shields, with surgical precision. The Iron Thunder went dark, dead in space, helpless. "Boarding teams, go," Hana commanded. She led them herself. 12 human soldiers against 500 Krix warriors. The airlock opened, and Hana stepped onto the enemy ship. Around her, Krix warriors charged with weapons raised and battle cries on their lips. They were the elite of the elite, the best soldiers the Krix Empire had produced. Hana moved through them like water through sand. Her armor made her faster than any unaugmented being could follow. Her weapons fired rounds that did not kill but paralyzed, dropping warriors to the ground in frozen heaps. When Krix blades came close, she was already somewhere else. In 17 minutes, it was over. 500 warriors lay unconscious but alive on the floor of their own ship. Not a single one was dead. Hana found Warlord Melos on the bridge, standing with his back against a wall, a weapon in each of his 4 hands. His eyes were wide with something he had never felt before in his long life of combat. "Fear. You should kill me," he said. His voice shook. "That is what warriors do. Kill or be killed." Hana lowered her weapon. "We are not warriors. We are something you never understood. We are humans." She transmitted a message to the entire coalition fleet. "Your commander is now our guest. Your attack has failed. You have two choices. Withdraw from human space immediately, or join him in captivity. You have 5 minutes to decide. The coalition fleet broke apart. Some ships turned and ran immediately. Others hesitated, waiting for orders that would never come. Old grudges between species surfaced as ships that had been allies began to target each other. In the chaos, the Thoral ship's delegate Keela's people transmitted a secret signal and moved to join the human formation. Within an hour, the Great Coalition had scattered like dust in the wind. Debris from destroyed ships floated in the darkness. The survivors fled toward their home systems, carrying stories of the horror they had witnessed. On the council station, High Counselor Vorn watched the defeat with trembling hands. His greatest weapon had been broken like a toy, 2,000 ships against 200, and the 200 had won without breaking a sweat. And now, his sensors showed something that made his blood run cold. Human ships had appeared near the station. Not attacking, not threatening, just waiting, watching. His aide approached with a pale face. High Counselor, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Vorn swallowed hard. What does it say? The aide looked at the screen. It says, your move. Vorn stared at the message for a long time. Outside his window, human ships hung in the darkness like patient predators. For the first time in his very long life, High Counselor Vorn understood what it felt like to be powerless, to be small, to be afraid. He had laughed when Ambassador Minho walked out of the council chamber. He had mocked humanity's Declaration of Independence. He had voted for war without hesitation. Now he was beginning to understand the cost of his arrogance. And somewhere in human space, Captain Jang Hana escorted Warlord Melos to a comfortable cell, offered him food and water, and treated him with perfect courtesy. The mercy was somehow worse than cruelty would have been. It showed that humans did not need to be cruel. They did not need to prove anything. They had won so completely that they could afford to be kind. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. 1 year had passed since humanity closed its borders. The galaxy was a very different place. The Coalition's defeat had sent shockwaves through every civilization. Species that had considered themselves invincible now understood their weakness. Governments that had laughed at humans now spoke their name in whispers. The old order of the galaxy, built on ancient power and arrogant tradition, had crumbled in a single day. High Counselor Vorn's shuttle approached Earth's orbital station slowly, following a precise path provided by human traffic control. Any deviation, he had been warned, would result in immediate destruction. He had requested this meeting for months. For months, humanity had said nothing. Then, 3 days ago, a simple message had arrived. You may come. You will wait. And wait he did. For 3 days, Vorn sat in a small but comfortable room on the station. He was given good food, clean water, and access to entertainment. He was treated with politeness, but no human official came to see him. No meetings were scheduled. He simply waited, alone with his thoughts, while the galaxy watched. On the 4th day, the door finally opened. President Kim Yuna entered the room. She wore a simple dark uniform with no decorations or symbols of rank. Her face was calm, her eyes steady. She looked at Vorn the way one might look at a child who had caused trouble and was finally ready to apologize. High Counselor, she said simply. Please, sit. Vorn sat. His 4 hands trembled slightly. He had prepared speeches, arguments, and appeals. But now, facing this small human woman, all his words seemed foolish. I have come to discuss peace, he finally managed. Yuna sat across from him. No, you have come to beg for help. Your worlds are dying. Your economies have collapsed. Your people are suffering. You do not want peace. You want things to go back to the way they were. Vorn wanted to argue, but he could not. She was right. We will help you, Yuna continued. But not for free. Not this time. She placed a data tablet on the table between them. These are our terms. A full investigation into the massacre on Kepler 22b. Those responsible will be tried and punished. The families of the victims will receive compensation from the Krix Empire. Vorn nodded quickly. Yes, of course. That can be arranged. I am not finished. Yuna's voice was quiet but sharp. Humanity will have permanent veto power in the Galactic Council. Any decision that affects human interests can be rejected by us without appeal. Vorn's face twisted. That would make you equal to the founding species. We are not equal to the founding species. We are superior to the founding species. Your coalition proved that quite clearly. Yuna's eyes never wavered. You will also pay reparations for 100 years of trade exploitation. The amount has been calculated and is included in the document. Vorn looked at the number. His skin grew pale. Furthermore, Yuna continued, human space will be recognized as permanently inviolable. No alien ship will enter without explicit permission. Any violation will be treated as an act of war. She leaned forward slightly, and finally, you will apologize. Not in private. Not in a quiet message. You will stand in the Grand Assembly Hall, where your predecessor mocked our ambassador, and you will read a prepared statement. You will admit the Council's failures. You will acknowledge humanity's rightful place among the stars. And every world in the galaxy will watch. Vorn stared at her. These terms are humiliating. Yes, Yuna agreed. They are. But consider the alternative. We can wait another year. Perhaps 2. How many more of your people will die from the plague? How many more will starve? How many more gates will collapse? We have everything we need within our borders. We can wait forever. She paused. Can you? The silence stretched for a long moment. Vorn thought of the reports on his desk. The death counts. The economic projections. The political chaos, as species blamed each other for the disaster. He thought of his own people, beginning to lose faith in the council that had ruled them for millennia. He had no choice. He had never had a choice. I accept your terms, he whispered. 3 weeks later, the galaxy watched as High Counselor Vorn knelt in the Grand Assembly Hall. The same hall where Ambassador Minho had been dismissed and mocked. The same hall where humanity had been called too young to understand. Vorn read the prepared statement with a shaking voice. He admitted that the Council had failed humanity. He admitted that the attack on Kepler-22b should have been investigated. He admitted that human complaints had been dismissed without fair consideration. He acknowledged humanity's strength, wisdom, and rightful place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. When he finished, the hall was silent. Thousands of delegates sat in stunned quiet. Scholar Riva, the ancient historian, nodded slowly. She had warned them. Now perhaps they would listen. Delegate Keela stood and walked to Vorn. She had been appointed as the official liaison between the Council and the new Human Galactic Cooperative. Her people would be the first to receive human aid, a reward for her secret support during the dark months. It is done, she said softly. In the following months, things began to change. Human medical teams arrived on plague-stricken worlds, bringing technologies that cured diseases within days. Engineers repaired jump gates with methods the galaxy had never seen. Agricultural experts taught new techniques that ended famines. Slowly, carefully, humanity shared its gifts once again, but this time, there was no mockery, no dismissal, no laughter. This time, there was respect. Admiral Park Do-hoon retired to a quiet colony world, where he spent his days gardening and watching the stars. Captain Jang Hana was promoted to admiral and given command of the defense fleet. Dr. Cho Sun-woo began sharing some human technologies, carefully selected ones with species that had proven trustworthy. Ambassador Lee Min-ho returned to diplomacy, and this time, every word he spoke was treated with careful attention. On Earth's orbital station, President Yuna stood at an observation window, watching the stars. Delegate Kella joined her, the blue-skinned alien standing quietly at her side. May I ask you something? Keela said. Yuna nodded. During all of this, the withdrawal, the war, the waiting, did you ever consider that you might lose? That something might go wrong? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Her reflection stared back at her from the window, superimposed on the endless darkness of space. We spent 100 years among you, she finally said. We learned your strategies, your weaknesses, your blind spots. We watched your empires rise and fall. We studied your greatest victories and your worst mistakes. By the time we closed our borders, we knew the galaxy better than the galaxy knew itself. She turned to face Keela directly. The question was never whether we would win. The question was whether you would force us to prove it. Kayla felt a chill run through her. And now? What will humanity do with its power? President Yuna smiled, a small, mysterious expression that revealed nothing and promised everything. We will do what we have always done. We will watch. We will learn. We will grow stronger. And we will wait. Her eyes returned to the stars, to the countless worlds and species that now look to Earth with new eyes. We will wait for the next civilization that makes the mistake of underestimating us. The stars burned on in silence. The galaxy turned slowly through the void, and humanity, once dismissed as children, took their place among the eternal powers of the universe, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as something far more terrifying, survivors.